getting set up here, and I'll go ahead and hit start webinar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will get started in just a couple minutes. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We'll get started with the webinar in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in just about 1 minute. All right, so welcome everyone to this week's Hyperledger In-depth, an hour with KrypC, best practices and major obstacles for upgrading to Hyperledger Fabric 2.2. My name is Karen Ottoni, and I'm the Director of Ecosystem at Hyperledger, and I'll be facilitating our session today. We have Chris Smith joining us, Mohit Sethi, and Kartik Nair. But before that, I'll get into a little housekeeping before we get started. As with all sessions and meetings here at Hyperledger, we follow an antitrust policy that you can find on our website and our wiki page. This is being recorded, so don't worry. It will be available both on our YouTube page. We are currently live on YouTube, and also on the same events page that you registered for this session. Slides will be available on the event page on our website as well, where you registered. So don't worry about that. You'll get all the information you need. We like to make these webinars a little bit more interactive than your typical webinars. So we encourage you to ask questions, to get involved, raise your hand early and often. I will be monitoring the chat, the Q&A box, and the hand raising. So anytime you want to jump in, please feel free to do so. And our speakers will also be inviting you to speak at certain points as well. So we really want to make this a useful time for you to get what you want to learn out of it and take advantage of the fact that KrypC is here to share their knowledge and experience with you. So with that, I will stop sharing. Excuse me, stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Chris to get started while I grab some water.
Thanks, Karen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Take it away.
All right, welcome everyone. I want to thank you in advance for taking the time to attend our presentation on best practices for upgrading to Hyperledger Fabric version 2.2. My name is Christopher Smith, and I am the Vice President of Sales for KrypC Technologies. Also presenting today are our VP of Technology, Mohit Sethi, and our Research Engineer, Kartik Nair. To start out, I just want to, oops, I should have showed you that there. So these are the wonderful faces. So to start out, I just want to tell you a little bit about KrypC. We were founded in 2016, and KrypC Technologies is a team of blockchain professionals with a combined 120 years of experience delivering world-class technology solutions to large enterprises and to aspiring startups. In addition to blockchain services, that we offer to manage blockchain infrastructure and provide chain code management, we offer a low-code blockchain as a service solution called KrypC. We are heavily involved with Hyperledger, Hedera Hashgraph, and we're also a Microsoft co-seller. So today's topic, we're going to discuss upgrading to Hyperledger Fabric version 2.2, and we'll share what we believe are the best practices and some of the greatest challenges throughout the process. These recommendations are based on our experience upgrading our systems and upgrading the systems of several of our clients. All right, so the question is, what is the need for all this? So why are we talking about this today? So there have been two major announcements in the last few months that are relevant to this topic. First, Hyperledger Fabric announced the end of support for version 1.4 as of April 2021. And then second, Microsoft announced that they were deprecating their Azure blockchain services as of September 2021. So if you want to take advantage of the additional features of Hyperledger 2.2, you'll need to go through the upgrade process. And if you are using ABS, you may need a new technology partner to guide you through the process. So given the maturity curve of blockchain, most of the programs in the past were not in production. So the upgrades were offline and it was not a business critical issue. Now, however, more and more programs are live and the in-place upgrade is becoming more common. So in-place upgrades are relatively complex given the business dependency of multiple parties in the ecosystem. And we are witnessing more enterprises approaching us for help. And we have found that each upgrade is a unique proposition unto itself. So in this session, my colleagues will share their real life upgrade experiences. And we're not going to reference any client names just to respect confidentiality. And I will also tell you about our upgrade ARM template that is available at no cost on the Microsoft Marketplace. It's a great resource for getting started in the process. And of course, if you have any questions about how to use it or if you need extra help, we are available to help. So I'll turn it over to Mohit now to discuss the best practices for getting started. You ready, Mohit? And you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So as Chris mentioned, so before I get into some of the details and experience which we have gone through at KrypC handling multiple upgrades, just to touch on like what's currently happening. So there are a lot of projects which are on production on Hyperledger Fabric. IT and implementation teams are busy with new projects on Fabric, Hyperledger Fabric. However, a lot of attention and thought process is going on basically on two other challenges, as Chris also mentioned, migration from one platform to another, as well as upgrading. As we all are here to discuss on the upgrade, so I'll be discussing more on the primarily on the upgrade part. Now, why upgrade have become so important in the Hyperledger Fabric journeys? Because most of the production projects were on basically Hyperledger Fabric 1.4 LTS version, which was a very long supported and very stable version, and it was like widely adopted. Now, when we talk about upgrades in a normal ecosystem, it is basically how do we write scripts and how do we do database upgrades, application upgrades. But when it comes to blockchain and specifically Hyperledger Fabric, there are multiple members, and we would have projects might have multiple channels, multiple chain code. So there is a need of an in-place upgrade so that the data and the policies which were provisioned and configured during the 1.4 version still remains intact, and for example, in the 2.2 version. So definitely there is a need of an in-place upgrade. So basically, I would be sharing the experience which we have gone through and what we should be following and what we should be avoiding. And definitely during the presentation, the webinar, like we would like to make it more interactive. If you have anything, you can send a message for a particular point. So let me start. So the first thing is basically we have to create a plan and create simulated instances. For example, if our application is running on a cluster or in a virtual machine model, and if there are, let's say, 3 members, 3 peer organization, 1 order organization, we should basically be doing the same thing in our test instances and run the upgrades. It would be a big mistake if we basically directly run it on the production systems. Basically, I'll cover more on that in the subsequent slides as well. And there is something new which have come up. Not many people would have used it, but specifically if we are into Kubernetes-based deployment, we will be going through something called external chain code. So we should also validate that our internal chain code functionalities are also tested on the external chain code. And once we basically have done the test on various instances by repeating the, let's say, taking the backup of the data, recreating the instances, we could perform certain, let's say, a better plan. So in what sequence of operation we should be performing the upgrade? Shall we upgrade the PR first? Shall we upgrade the order first? Or among a large consortium, who should be doing this first? So this practice would basically remove any challenges which we get into the maybe, let's say, the UAT systems or the production systems. Sorry, is there any? I heard some noise. Anyway, let's continue. And obviously, what are the channel and chain code policies which needs to be tuned in terms of planning the upgrade? So let me go into the next slide.
Apologies, it's I went ahead a lot. It's a little slow. I'll get there eventually.
Sure.
Good.
Yeah, maybe you have to go into
There you
front.
go.
Yeah. Now, when we say testing, creating an instance, it is also equally important that we are testing end-to-end functionality. For example, in your current application, the channel chain code endorsement policy is something. So we should also test whether such endorsement policies are working. For example, we have 2 out of 5. We should also be seeing that different combinations of 2 are also working in the new upgrades. And specifically, why 2.2 is more important? There could be multiple upgrades. For example, 1.4 to 1.3 to 1.4. Hyperledger Fabric 2.0 brings in the new lifecycle. The new lifecycle basically is quite different. You need to approve a chain code before it could be committed. Whereas in Hyperledger 1.4, people just need to upgrade the packages, right? And any one of the member could instantiate the chain code or upgrade the chain code, and that upgrade would take effect. Whereas once you move to Hyperledger Fabric 2.x, 2.2, each member, the default policy enforces that each member have to approve the chain code, and then only it could be committed. This is a significant upgrade in the way chain code management was managed. So it would help people to basically plan that are all of the members, their IT teams, their software, their lifecycle flow are have adapted basically to this new flow. And that if you are upgrading from 1.4 to 2.2, then there could be some channel policies which are also needed to be maybe validated, upgraded. So can we go into the next one?
Mohit, we actually got a question from Subhasis Banik. He's asking, how do you add an order from a different organization to the application channel in Hyperledger Fabric 2.2? Could you share the steps?
How do we order the how do we add the order
from a different organization to the application channel? And Subhasis, if you'd like to come on off of mute and clarify your question, feel free.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question primarily is, I want to know, like, how do you add an orderer which does not have the certificates like the crypto material? So let's say I'm having an orderer of a specific organization, and I want to add another orderer from a different organization, not having the same crypto material, to the application channel, not the system channel in Hyperledger Fabric 2.2.
Yeah, that's a good question. However, basically, I would like to focus on the upgrade. So I will give you a brief, and maybe separately we can have a discussion. So Hyperledger Fabric 2.4, which is expected to come, that reduces the dependency of the tie-up between the system channel and the application channel, which exists today, right? So till Hyperledger Fabric 2.2, it makes it compulsory. Basically, first you have to add the order into the system channel, right? Then only you can make it to the application channel. So how do we do that? Maybe I can cover in a separate discussion. So
yeah, sure. We can
discuss
it
let's
offline.
focus. But that's a valid point, and that constraint is basically being made much easier in the upcoming 2.4 release.
Okay, sure.
What is happening today is if you even if you design multiple orders for different channels, right, within the organization, each orderer would be aware of all the channels which are available across any of the members. So, but going with this new logic, which is supposed to come in 2.4, that privacy would be enhanced. Plus, it would make order management much simpler. Right. So,
sure. Thanks for the help.
Yeah, so we can move into the next one.
Karen, was there another question?
No.
Yeah, sure.
Let's continue. Thank you.
Yeah. So one more thing important is basically taking the backup and creating the rollback procedures. Now, why this is important is, and your existing channel could comprise of multiple members, and different member would be running are managed by different IT teams. They might be running on different platforms. For example, few of the members could be running in, let's say, the KrypC provided platform. Some could be running in their own, and similarly Azure, AWS, or like there are multiples, right? Due to various ways in which the platforms are basically designed, it's quite possible that in your first case, in your first trial, you are able to upgrade, let's say, peers in few of the organizations, but for some reason, some other organization peers, they were not able to upgrade. So it's important to factor that everyone, not only one, let's say if you have 5-member organization, and if you are doing an upgrade, everyone should basically create a plan. In case of a failure, how do we go back to our previous version? And if we don't do so, we can get into a situation where the network is partially upgraded, partially not, and we might not be able to do any transactions. So this is a very important point. And obviously, this planning requires a good synergy between teams who could be spread across different geographies, and they might be in different time zones. So this backup and rollback plan is very, very important. So for example, in a simple Docker Compose model, you just need to ensure that the volumes, which are basically tied to the Docker instances for the peer and the order. So we should basically stop the processes, take their backup, and then do the upgrade process. So in case of any issues, then we figure out that, okay, this is not going to work. We have to try it again, but let's bring the network back again. That's how it was. So it would be easy if we can bring back that folder, use that same config file, and bring the network back. So this was a simple example. However, if you have a custom deployment model, your own Kubernetes model where you are having disk mounted, so we should be knowing how the data have to be backed up, and basically how to use the backup data again. Yes, Chris, can we go into the next one? And how do we handle the downtime handling? So it's quite possible that if we are in control of the entire network, for example, if we are the platform operator managing various services for our members, all the instances would be in our control. It will be more fine-tuned. However, definitely there would be multiple teams which are managing, and based on the size of the data and the number of chain codes channel, it would definitely take time. So how does the business take this? Certain applications could be critical that the reports or the chain code queries should be made available to them at any point of time. So do we handle it in such a way that not all the peers, for example, in my organization, I have 3 peers, or let's say 4 peers. So I'll upgrade the 3 peers, bring the network, upgrade the network, but one of my peer would still remain in 1.4. It would be able to provide the chain code queries till basically the new network comes up, and then I could route the traffic to the upgraded peers, and then take this peer as the only peer which have to be upgraded. So this is how we could handle, let's say, an example of handling the queries in the downtime. But this is also an important aspect that when we are upgrading, we should consider what's the impact of the downtime on the application which relies on the blockchain network, and do we need to provide query or not? Yes, I think we can go into the next one. So I have actually covered it previously. So as I said, a Hyperledger Fabric network, let's say 5 member organizations, could be spanning across different geographies. People would be in different time zones. So a coordination and the plan, which also included the rollback and backup and recovery plan, all those should be in place. So you should know how to contact people from different teams and then plan it well. And obviously, first we have to do in the test stages, UAT stages before getting into the production.
Mohit, we do have a question coming from the audience from Jayakar Johnson.
Yes.
Asking, while upgrading, what are the interoperability consistency strategies to be adopted?
Interoperability?
Interoperability consistency strategy.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. And Jayakar, if you want to clarify your question, feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, please go ahead.
That is, we are doing architecture for a entirely different project for that coronavirus control program
Okay.
that is upgradable for that regular real-time healthcare application. So the thing is, here there will be a lot of interoperability I mean, in the blockchain in this project is there. So see, in that we plan to use that the Hyperledger framework as that base for that the total security of this data security.
Yes.
So what is your recommendation when we upgrade from one version to another version? Anything you advise for that the structural designing? See what has to be.
Yes. So we have a similar experience, not exactly critical on the same aspect, but it was critical from the business requirement. The data was huge in one of the projects which we had to upgrade. And for your case, the application is very critical because it needs to continue. Upgrade is required, but still the application should continue to serve its purpose, especially in this condition, pandemic condition. So in this case, like I will share maybe a bit of our experience. So when we did the test trial, we started with just the concept. Means we took the replica of the network. We had just a few transactions, and we tested it again and again on the test network, not on the obviously on the actual network. Then what we did, because the actual data and the project was basically using a lot of something called the private data collection exhaustively, and the data was huge. And so one of the point is when we upgrade specifically the peer and Hyperledger Fabric from 1.4 to 2.2, there is a command basically it will upgrade the database, right? It requires the database upgrade also, specifically if we are using CouchDB, and if the data is huge, it takes time. And similarly, what happens is if you have multiple team members for the same cluster, and if you are going with the sequence, so we ended up basically creating scripts. So that reduced a lot of manual intervention. Obviously, everything cannot be automated, but we basically created scripts to the extent that let's say the PR upgrade process and whatever could have been done, they got executed in a script flow, and all the validations were done, whether each and every process have happened, and then it went. So I would say that we have to do an automation to the extent possible, reduce the manual error, the scope of manual errors that could happen, practice it, and then execute it on the production. And I think specifically in the case which you are referring, it would also be ideal that we follow a strategy where data is made available during the upgrade process. And I would strongly recommend that the backup is taken, and you should consider that there could be problems coming in, and we should be able to stay in the current version, and we should not be in a situation that we are not able to run the current version once we start the upgrade and there are problems in the upgrade. So all the risk factors should be identified, and the proper steps should be taken, and automation should be done to the extent possible. So that would be my recommendation. Basically.
Is that app registry that also in a blockchain? Whether it will be helpful for that?
Application registry?
Yes, because that when we work out for that, see interoperability, that is different project developers, maybe from the future also they will they can access that blockchain data. That's why I think that that registry, that app registry, that also in a blockchain, I think it will work out. That I think so. That
Well, I'm not able to follow what is app registry. That could be very specific to your application.
maybe that's yeah. That
Thank you, Jayakar. We'll give you their contact information. You can follow up with more questions later on.
thank you.
Yeah, definitely will be happy to help.
Please feel free to continue, Mohit, with the presentation.
Okay, Mohit, are you going to also talk about the common challenges, the next section?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We'll just let you roll it right into it. Oh, yeah, that's what I get for using animation.
Yeah, so this is one of a very important point. Sometimes as part of a downtime strategy, we tend to do multiple things because the IT team and the business think that we are getting into an upgrade. So let's do multiple tasks at the same time so that on a single downtime, we could complete the pending task. So one of those could be upgrading, I won't say upgrading the consensus, but changing the consensus or migrating the consensus, for example, Kafka to Raft. So definitely, we will not recommend that you perform both the tasks together. If the recommended consensus, the default consensus from 2.2 is Raft, it's quite likely that the applications which have been deployed on 1.4 could be running on either Kafka or Raft. So if you are on Kafka, if you want to move it to Raft, so let's perform that first, or maybe you can plan that later in whichever manner which suits you. But let's avoid doing both of them together because this is equally complex in nature. So it's best avoided to perform them in a sequence. Yeah, so it's common that when we have basically set up the IT systems, for example, in a Dockerized environment, we could have scheduled backups of the virtual machines or the Docker data, or in Kubernetes, managed Kubernetes services, we could have used certain tools basically to take the backup of all the containers. However, before going for an upgrade, it's very important that don't rely that we have the backups already taken. As a good starting point, it's always good to either use this backup to create your test system where you want to first validate the upgrade process, or basically validate them that the network is coming up and all your application functionality is working with the existing network, which is basically created by restoring this backup. How do we handle that they don't interfere with the live system is another challenge, but it's important that we validate this data by restoring them and also performing certain transactions on it. So we are very sure that the backups are going to work in case of any failures in our upgrade process. Yeah. And this is a very mixed issue, I would say, because it is not related to just an upgrade failure, but this happens when part of your network, for example, out of 6 members, 4 of the members have successfully upgraded, whereas 2 of them have got certain issues. And the policies for your channel and the chain code were such that 4 members could basically endorse a transaction, or the endorsement policy allowed them. Now, in such case, what could happen is you would have gone ahead with your blockchain, new blocks have got added, and 2 of the members have basically not upgraded. Now we have no choice, right? We have to just figure out how to upgrade the 2 organizations which failed to upgrade. We will not be able to basically roll back this for, because you would have done some real logical transactions and it would not be possible to, in general, we cannot delete it. We should not be deleting any blocks because they are live transactions. It would be connected with your live systems. So once the upgrade have happened, ideally we should be validating transactions from all the members, that all of the members are able to perform transactions. So best way is to basically ensure that all of them approve a new chain code. So you will know that the life cycle, the new life cycle is basically working and each member have got adapted to the new life cycle flow. And after that, we could perform some transactions in such a way that all the party perform certain transactions. So then you would be very sure that yes, all the members have got upgraded, and then we could continue to perform newer transactions. Yeah, so this issue is very specific to deployments which are executed on managed Kubernetes service or non-managed Kubernetes service as well. So from if I remember from 1.20, Kubernetes is basically not going to support the Docker in Docker support, where Docker is able to create no Docker images, and this have a is peer are executing chain code by themselves. They are when we deploy a chain code, peer is able to create a new Docker image and start the it's not going to work once we move to this Kubernetes version. So the only way is basically create external chain code support, and we need to test them as well. And once we get into extend,
Hi, Mohit. We're having a little bit of issues with your audio.
is going to create 6 external chain code containers, or we are going to share them, and how do we perform mutual TLS security, or shall we use chain code as a service? So those things will come, but initially the recommendation would be basically to have at least 1 or 2 chain code services and ensure they are only getting executed by the member organization, not by the other member organization, and test it thoroughly. Because once we upgrade, let's say a Kubernetes cluster, it would be very tough because you will have different challenges. Shall we work on the Kubernetes side to downgrade, or we work on Hyperledger roll back to the old version? So that would add up to the complication. So it's very important, if your deployment is on Kubernetes and your plans are basically to upgrade Kubernetes to the latest version. So sooner or later it's going to happen. So it's better that the architecture and the testing is properly done on the external chain code side of it. Yes.
Hey, Mohit, why don't you go off video, because your audio is cracking up just a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing is, once the network is upgraded, it would be good if for the first few days we observe it in terms of the logs. Are there any inconsistencies? Are there logs piling up? So that would be good to do. And I think after a week or so, it's fine. Then I think we are good to go, and we have successfully upgraded the network. And maybe one more point I would like to highlight here. The upgrade of Hyperledger Fabric 2.2 is not just on the the binaries, we also needs to upgrade the channel. So there is something called the channel capability, which needs to be upgraded from 1.4 to 2.2. And the important thing to consider is if we have multiple channels, this have to be done multiple times. So if we have, let's say, 4 channels, this upgrade of the channel capability have to be done 4 times. If we have, let's say, n number of chain codes and n number of channels, then the life cycle of each chain code have to be planned. All of them have to be deployed and confirmed using the new life cycle. So that's also an important. So it might be relevant for projects which have a lot of chain codes, lot of channel, and it would be good if we basically define a strategy, certain automation, so that those things are minimized. Yes.
Thanks, Mohit. So, where we go here? Okay, so next up, I'm going to have Karthik talk about the ARM template that's available on Microsoft Marketplace. This is a free resource that you can download and look at. Obviously, if you have any questions implementing it, you can call us. So, Karthik.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Do you want my video on, or shall I continue without the video?
It's okay if you don't have video.
Okay, fine. Okay, then I'll continue. I'll just pick up where Mohit had stopped. So the main reason behind this webinar is to explain how the upgradation process is consequential to your existing setup. So what we have identified is there is a inflection point at this point of time. I mean, on one side, the orchestration technology and the containerization technology is improving rapidly. You're having Kubernetes evolution happening, and you're getting new releases coming in with extra powerful features. Similarly, you're getting Hyperledger features, which are getting improved day by day. So for us developers who started working on Hyperledger either 0.4, 0.6, or maybe 1.4, we have seen a lot of features and we have worked with them. But at this point of time, what has happened when it switched off to 2.0 and then 2.2, 2.4, is that the life cycle of the entire process has been improved. It has been democratized further. So anytime you make a change to something, everybody who's participating in the network should come into consensus. The policy which is getting enforced in your network is reliant on all the participants. So that is the situation that has happened in 2.0 and the releases which came after that. Similar to that, the Kubernetes evolution has reached version 23, and they have announced that there is no support for internal Docker runtime for any Kubernetes version that's going to be coming out further. So we decided to select this topic for the seminar after we figured that Microsoft AKS, which was providing versions from 1.15 to 1.18, was moving on from 1.18 and it was going towards 1.19, 1.20, 1.2 etc. Plus, among these releases, there was a huge fault where the Docker runtime was not being made available any longer. So the existing production systems which are relying on the Docker runtime and the production systems which are running on 1.4 faced a mammoth task of upgrading the cluster infrastructure as well as the Hyperledger Fabric protocol due to their closing dates. So since the new release dates are being announced for newer versions, we had to find a way where we can accomplish both the tasks. So that was the whole agenda behind the presentation. So we identified few problems, we identified the consequences, we have just given you few steps to think, to remember that you should be addressing these. For example, the 5 things to remember when you're trying to upgrade. Mohit has explained all the 5 points very clearly to you. The main thing is the data backup. Most of the time you take the data backup, but you really now focus on the channel capabilities or any other artifact related information. So you need to be very careful when you're doing each and every step in the strategy which you are going to create. So coming back here, before you try something new, it's always good to have a test drive. So that was the whole idea behind creating an ARM template on Azure. So we decided there are many people who would like to play around with Hyperledger 2.2 before they move on to 2.2, because there are consequential changes with the lifecycle, maybe with the consensus mechanism, maybe with the private data collection, with many things. So to have a test drive, we created an infrastructure as code offering on Azure Marketplace with the name KrypC ARM template for Azure, or deployer of Hyperledger Fabric version 2.2 and above. So you can try this out anytime. You can go into Azure, you can try the template, it's free. You can have the template installed in your tenant ID in your client, and then you can have a test drive of Hyperledger, try your application out there. If the application is exceeding all the parameters which you have identified for your application, then go ahead, please upgrade your application. So the process of upgradation is very well documented by Hyperledger Foundation, and you can take a few advices which you might have learned today. Now, what is there in the template? So I'll explain what you get from the template. So the concept or the design behind the template is to create two separate clusters for the order organization and the peer organization. So the template, by default, it comes with a peer cluster of two peers and an order organization of, I think, 3 orders or 5. It depends on the raft, the formula which you're adopting. So how do you use the template? That's the next question. You move on to Azure Marketplace, you select the template, you click on try it now, then you have to feed in some information. You feed in information regarding your Fabric CA, the admin name, the admin password. You feed in information regarding the cluster, the type of clusters which are allowed, or this type of VMs which are allowed to constitute your cluster is already given in a dropdown. You can easily select it. You can provide the cluster information, you can provide the CA information, you can provide the organization information. So in this part, you have to select if you want to create a peer or an order organization. So you can start with creating a peer organization, then you complete the cluster creation, follow through the process. Once the cluster is available with peer running in it, you can come back to the same offer again and then create another where an order organization will get created with the number of orders which you have specified and the order organization details which you have fed into the user interface. So at this point of time, you're left with 2 clusters which together constitute your original Hyperledger network. So you have the peer, you have the order. Then how do you use it? So we have a GitHub profile. We have given step-by-step guidance on how to use the template, how to use the clusters, how to interact with them, how to create a channel, how to join a channel. So these many operations can be done by following the instructions which we have provided on the GitHub page. Plus, there are 2 major things which are coming in this ARM, the ARM template which we have provided. First thing is the peer image. The peer image is coming customized to support the external chain code feature. So in general, if you're using Hyperledger original for 2.2 images, you are downloading and then you are running it in a Docker container, or maybe you're getting some other way, you're getting it by Helm charts, you're installing it in your cluster, however it is, it's coming in factory made, as in it doesn't support external chain code as it is. The peer binary has to be rebuilt, the peer binary has to be reinstalled, the peer binary has to be fed into a network again. So this process we have taken care of for you. You can just try out the external chain code feature. Only few details need to change. You just have to mention the connection profile, the metadata profile, etc. in your chain code, and then you can test your external chain code out in the network. So the second feature I wanted to refer to is the Fabric go-cli image. So in general, you use peer commands to execute and then test out your network. That's how Hyperledger Fabric admin really operates. We have created a custom version of Fabric go-cli, which is again provided by the Hyperledger Foundation, thanks to you guys. So we have used the Fabric go-cli, we built an image, we have kept it in an open repository. So you can use the Fabric go-cli to interact with your cluster and channel. So it will give you a much more easier way to interact with the channel or the organization or anything you're creating. So this is what we have in stock in the ARM template. So anybody can try it out if you have an Azure account, of course. So the step-by-step guidance, like I've explained, it's available in the GitHub profile. If you guys want, we will share the link here in the chat window, or can somebody get them the GitHub link? So that's all I got to say in this. It deploys Fabric 2.2, and we will be maintaining the same offer. We'll increase or improve it anytime a new offer is coming in. So this will be your starting point where you can try out 2.2, try your application in this, see if it is working, see if you're finding some struggle, understand where all the changes have to be made in your application in order to support 2.2 version. Then you start planning your movement from 1.4 to 2.2. So just consider it as a step-by-step upgradation plan. So you can formalize your strategy around this. You can try this out. And I think the references are here for the things which I was making discussion on. So you can find render support for Hyperledger Fabric is available here. The template link is available here. And then, yeah. So that's where you can find the template. And I think we'll give you the GitHub page link too, because it will help you further your understanding of Hyperledger Fabric. So yeah, that's where you can start. You have any queries, any problems, you can reach out to us. We are always there, KrypC Technology. I think Chris can take over now.
Thank you, Karthik. And thanks again, Mohit. I know it's really late for you guys, so I appreciate you guys taking the time to jump on the call. So, so we have about 10 minutes left. If there's any questions in the chat or the Q&A, let me see here. I don't see anything. If anyone, Karen, do you want to open it up for questions or?
Yeah. If anybody wants to use this time with KrypC to ask any questions before we wrap up, just feel free to raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box or the chat. I will also check the YouTube live page. So anyone, if you're on YouTube right now watching live, you can post in that chat box there as well.
And I should also point out, when it says need help, you can contact me. I mean, I will not be providing any of said help. I will have to get you in touch with the people that can answer the questions. So.
I got the GitHub link with me. I'll just drop it in the panel, I guess, the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could put that in the chat. And I will share it with everybody here.
Thank you, all done.
Oops. Vincent is asking a question. What challenges have you encountered interfacing with government or defense customers to find use cases? Sort of a more general question. Is that something that Chris, you could take, or one of the panelists?
I think Mohit can answer.
Mohit, are you still on?
Does KrypC do work with government and public sector?
So yeah, we have done few projects in public sector. So we can only relate to the ones which we have done here. So it may not be uniform across the globe. So first thing is the timing, of course. So it takes a very long time for the project to kick off, even though it's not relevant to the technology itself. I mean, that's one big challenge which we have to go through all the time. Second thing, it's all about data localization rules which are coming in. So anytime you have to address something like this, you need to go through a plethora of security concerns and then the data localization rules of whichever government or whichever country you are addressing to. So we did manage to do this. I mean, thanks to the cloud ecosystem, which is like working around the clock to make sure that you have regions available wherever you can. So that has helped us a lot. And there is this intrinsic feel of blockchain maybe providing a problem towards the privacy of data that's coming in. So we had to like talk people into understanding how the enterprise and the permission ledgers work. So that was another problem which we addressed. So these are just very basic things. And if Mohit can add something else, I think that will be it. Other than that, majorly we face these questions. Other than that, I don't see anything else.
Yes, so just to add to Karthik's thing, what Karthik said, the few other challenges could be specifically related to security. How is the data secure, and how are basically the keys, right? When we do a transaction, there are private keys and certificates, where they are stored, how they are secured, how do we maintain. So one of the very important aspect of the Hyperledger Fabric ecosystem is, for example, the Fabric CA, where you are able to manage the life cycle of identities. In general, I have seen that not much people are talking about posting certificate revocation lists to the channels. So what happens if an identity is revoked? So how do we ensure that you are not able to perform the transactions? So those things have to be well documented, well articulated, well explained, because it's not just the transactions, because generally in sectors which are not from the above to the queries would be more related to what is the scalability, what is the performance. Here also those things are valid, but security is equally important. Not just the data localization, which Karthik mentioned, that is obviously an important factor, but how the transactions are secured, how do we ensure that somebody else is not able to do the transaction on my behalf, or if a person leaves a company, he's not able to perform the transaction. Can we integrate with, let's say, identity provider and use a proxy ID to perform all the transactions, right? In certain blockchain applications, you will have multiple IDs who are performing the transactions, whereas to have a better privacy control, you would basically have just one identity from an MSP, and the actual identities would be coming at your upper layer, and you need to maintain a log of all the details, basically which person from your, let's say, identity provider, Active Directory, etc., who have done the transaction and how it relates to the actual identity on the blockchain. Because there would be a lot of firewalls, DMZ, all those things have to be considered. It's Hyperledger Fabric ecosystem is definitely the most important part of the deployment, but how all the systems integrate with the blockchain network becomes much more important in this scenarios. And there could be times like, are we using elliptic curve cryptography, which is the signature algorithm, what is the hashing algorithm, and what are the options we have. Such are the challenges specifically when it is related to defense as well.
Thank you so much, Mohit. I will just take the screen now just to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Chris, Karthik, and Mohit, for a really informative session. As I said, they're available for any other questions that you have for them. You'll find the slides on the page for this event. We do this twice a month, our member webinars. Coming up, we have Pravici talking about verifiable credentials, and Oracle on August 18th, and Oracle talking about tokenization on Hyperledger Fabric on September 8th. So please be sure to sign up for those. We also have so much more content if you're looking to learn more about use cases or dive into more technical sessions. We have a webinar page on our website, and then also we had our global forum in June, and you can find all the sessions from the global forum on our YouTube page as well. There's a playlist there that you can browse. So I encourage you to go there, and I encourage you to get involved. We have a number of channels at Hyperledger We have a number of working groups, special interest groups. If you're looking to ask questions when you're struggling with implementation, I invite you to go to the chat.hyperledger.org, where you can jump right into the open source community of each of our technologies and help with getting some of your questions answered. We look forward to seeing you here with us next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.